Thanks so much for the introduction, Diana. Welcome, everybody. A special thank you to Diana, to Wendy Ark, and to Kelly Conway for your organization and execution of this year's kickoff event. We truly appreciate your time, energy, and efforts, so thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again to Kickoff 2020. As Diana stated, my name is Tracy Trask, and I am your TVIA president for the year 2020-2021. It's so nice to see all of your faces on Zoom. As we move forward with our presentation today and our class meetings, please take a moment to notice all of the familiar faces on your computer screen, especially in your class meetings. I know it's a little tough now because we have your faces off, but our meeting format usually allows us to connect in person, and I know this one doesn't, but I want to remind you all, parents and teens alike, how important you are to TVIA and to our community at large. You are a part of something bigger and you matter. In these times where it's easy to feel a bit isolated, please remember that you are not alone, and your TVIA community is here to support you in any way that we can. I want to give an extra special welcome to our 7th grade members and families. We are so excited to have you join our chapter, and we look forward to having you in TVIA. The TVIA experience is only possible due to the hard work and energy of our members. I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to a very special group of TVIA members who volunteer their time to help make our chapter run, your board. While the board usually gets some time off in the summer, this year was an exception and they really didn't get much of a break this year. So I am so appreciative for each and every one of you. It is my pleasure just to introduce you to your 2020-2021 TVIA SD2 board. Our president-elect is Jennifer Raisman. Our past president advisor is Shireen Atisha. Marie Vaughn is our treasurer. Lynn Nellis is our secretary. Jennifer Daniel Duckering is our VP of philanthropy. Caroline Davis is our assistant VP of philanthropy. Diana Lee and Wendy Ark are our co-VPs of programs. Kelly Conway is our assistant VP of programs. Erin Wall is our VP of membership. Emily Manarino is our assistant VP of membership. Carolyn Wolson is our VP of communications. Heather Cohn is our assistant VP of communications. Julie and Anthony Campagna are our leadership advisors. Our GLAs, or grade level advisors, are made up of Kathy Alexi for 7th grade, Christine Renner for 8th grade, Shelby Wyant for 9th grade, Megan Gormley for 10th grade, Kendra Farber for 11th grade, and Jen Eastlack for 12th grade. It truly takes a village to run this, so thank you all so much. It really is a pleasure to work with you. So the COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented challenges for our community and in turn for our philanthropy partners. Some philanthropies have had to suspend operations. Some are able to continue to operate but are unable to utilize outside volunteer support. Others can continue to utilize volunteer support but can only utilize it virtually, while some continue to need on-site support with a modified number of volunteers following specific health and safety protocols. Our board also knows that while there are differing needs in the community, there are also varying levels of comfort with in-person volunteer experiences by our membership in our chapter. Taking all of this into consideration, our board has developed a pathway for you to be able to continue your TVIA experience and community volunteerism, virtually or in person, based on your comfort level, as well as available volunteering opportunities. The outline of our plan will be discussed in each of our GLA meetings today. Please know that these are unprecedented times and our goal is to continue to provide an experience that is meaningful while balancing current health and safety requirements with families' comfort levels. Before we start our presentation today, we do have a little bit of business to attend to. I would first like to introduce Michael Atisha, a member of this year's Leadership Council, who will be speaking about our Leadership Council. Michael?
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Atisha, and this is my 2nd year on Leadership Council. Leadership Council is a group of teens from 10th to 12th grade that serve as a link between parents and grade members. We wear black at events and will introduce an organization's mission and explain why we're at that specific event. During the event, too, we will also try to lead by example while furthering TVIA's mission. This year, there are 12 members on Leadership Council, Tajan Patel, Trevor Keith, Brian Cheng, John Estes, Brian Slonim, Kyle Westland, Jaden Taylor, Kai Campagna, Mason Eastlock, Michael Letitia, Ben Trask, and Justin Bogucci. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Now I'd like to introduce Marie Vaughn, our treasurer, to facilitate approval of this year's budget.
Hi, everyone. The budget was sent to you with the newsletter. If you have hopefully you've taken a few minutes to review it. And if no one has any questions, I would like to move to approve the 2020-2021 budget for this year. And if you could look down to the reaction and hit the thumbs up icon, that would give you your approval.
I'll go ahead and second that vote, Marie, for the minutes, and go ahead and thumbs up if you approve. Thank you very much, everybody. The budget has passed. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
I would now like to introduce Lynn Nellis, our secretary, to facilitate approval of our May meeting minutes.
Hi, guys. I posted the minutes from the January 15th parent meeting, which was back, feels like so long ago. I haven't heard of any corrections or changes, so I'd like to move that we approve the January 15th parent meeting minutes.
I'll go ahead and second that too, Lynn.
Same thing for everybody on your reactions, if you could put a thumbs up or thumbs down.
I'm not sure if there's a thumbs down option, but if you don't vote, then we'll consider that a thumbs down, but thumbs up if you do. Great. The motion passes. Thank you so much, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody, for being patient with our new format today. We're so excited that we can still have our meeting and kick off this year. Please feel free to contact us at any time if you have questions. I'm really looking forward to this year. I know it's going to be different, but we're really excited to be able to continue to provide the TVIA experience. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and turn it back over to Diana.
Oh, thank you so much, Tracy. I just want to also welcome all of the new members of our class of 2024. I know this is a strange way to start joining a new organization with all of these changes, but we're really thrilled to have all of you. I am now very happy to introduce our keynote speaker who will be talking with us today on a very timely topic, and that is of resilience. Anthony Poponi is a jokester from birth and a self-admitted lover of rural downtowns as much as wild spaces. He specializes in putting joy back into our communities through workshops and keynotes to support human flourishing and unlocking the potential of people. Anthony loves connecting the dots in both simple drawings and in complex settings to create workplaces that work. He loves gluing together findings in complex research and occasionally glues together his fingers during home improvement projects. Please get ready to laugh and learn with Anthony with today's presentation on building resilience in trying times.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the lovely introduction, and excited to be here with you all today. My name is Anthony Poponi. I'm the author of the Focus on the 40 program, a keynote presenter and workshop host. As you can tell, we're doing a workshop together today. And I'm in Mount Crested Butte, Colorado, about 7,700 feet is where I'm at right now above sea level, presenting to you from the Western Colorado University ICE Lab. My history of working with youth is pretty long. I worked for Boys and Girls Club of Hawaii, one of my favorite organizations and missions. They had a huge leadership and volunteerism component that really aligns with what TVIA does. I was a middle school teacher for 3 years. I've been a foster parent a couple of times and also been a mentor in our local mentoring program. So what you all are doing in volunteerism is really close to my heart, and I love to see that TVIA is really encouraging you to get connected with nonprofits. And we're going to talk today a little bit really focused on you, but when we get to our October 13th session, we're going to focus a lot on other people and how service to other people, specifically through volunteerism and philanthropy, is really a big part of finding meaning in our own lives. So I'm really excited to work with you today. So let's talk about where we're going. So for today, we're going to quickly touch on the PERMA model for happiness with a focus on relationships and being other focused, put that in quotes. And by other focused, I mean philanthropy and volunteerism, and that's being other focused. But sometimes we have to kind of get out of our own way so that we can not be self-focused, and that's what resilience is all about. So number two, we are going to focus on what we need to do to get stress out of our way. So we're going to talk about what I call the big three causes of stress and how to alleviate those. And then we're going to talk about how to tackling the big three as a start to building resilience. And we'll also explore the tool of optimism. And if we have time, we're going to do a group activity. I tried it with a live group and it was a little bit hard to do, but it's called Impractical Knots. And this is what it looked like when we did a group activity before. And I don't really know that it worked out that well. But if you want to try this at home, you can. And I just moved something in my screen here. Excuse me for a second. There we go. We're going to do impractical knots in your own house. So everyone probably has a set of those nice white iPhone headphone jacks. All you have to do your own knots at home right now is just put them in your pocket for 2 minutes, because that's what happens with these things as soon as we do that. So if you're laughing at that, I would appreciate that you are laughing, because I want you to laugh today. So keep those LOLs rolling. You can throw those in the chat if you want, and it just helps me know that you're out there paying attention and having fun. All right, so here's another opportunity for an LOL. So safety first is always something that we need to be doing. So today's talk will be fast. It's going to be fun, and let's be silly. And you don't really need a mask, but maybe some safety goggles. So everybody can put yours on right now. And your video is not on, so you're not going to look as much like a fool as I am. Thank you for those of you putting those LOLs in the chat for me. So this is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. I guess he's not a real person, but this is Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes, and it's my favorite comic book for sure. All right, so let's talk about what's been going on. So this is a great quote, and it comes from this guy named John Lennon. Kids, ask your parents who that is, but he's a famous musician. He's now passed on, and he's credited with this quote, right? Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And 2020 has been a weird year, right? Life has been happening to us when we'd rather be doing things as they were, things that were what we consider the old normal, because now we have this new normal. So tapping into the tools to increase happiness, resiliency, and optimism are all tools that we need now more than ever. And you can use these tools for the rest of your life. It doesn't have to do with just COVID-19. These are all great tools to just continue to build that. Okay, so when we talk about anything we do today, I want you to look at this image on the screen here and recognize that what we're going to be doing is we're going to focus on you first today, right? Because you need to know yourself, and the more you know yourself and you understand yourself, then you can lead yourself. And if you look at that figure, it's a continuum, right? It doesn't really ever stop. So the more you get to know yourself, the more you can lead yourself. And once you do that and you're leading yourself, then you can start leading other people, okay? So focus on those tools today for yourself, and then at some point you can be sharing those with other people as well. All right, so let's do a quick check-in to see where you all are on the stress level that you're feeling so far. So on a scale of, let's see, cool as a cucumber, all the way over to maybe, pretty cool as the dude or El Duderino. He's ready to go bowling again, but sometimes he gets stressed out by Walter and nihilists. Or if you're really, really feeling stressed out, you might be what we would call a super anxious girl. And we're going to talk about some superheroes today in a fun way. She's wearing a cape, so she does have superpowers, and her superpower is to be stressed out about everything. So in the chat, tell me where you are on this scale right now. And I'm going to tell you, I'm kind of right in between. I really enjoy presenting. Of course, there's a little stress with having to make sure that you put on a good performance for people and a good presentation. So let's see what we have in the chat. So sounds like every day. Some people are in the middle. We got some dude. We've got some far rights. Good. Right in the middle. Good. Got some cucumbers out there, or as chill as a dill, maybe you could call that. So good, most of you not super stressed out, and that's really great to see. We're kind of getting used to this new normal, and we're going to talk about what happens after stress. So thank you for sharing all those. So when we talk about, super anxious girl, and we're going to revisit super anxious girl a little bit later on today, she's basically able to leap to the worst possible conclusion in a single bound. So let's talk about where that comes from and what stress is all about, okay? So stress is a motivator for action. It's your brain telling you that your brain wants you to do something.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to mute themselves, please. So your brain signals you with emotions and gives you an emotional thumbs up that you're doing things that feel good, makes you feel good, and wants you to move towards it. So it's your brain giving you a thumbs up and giving you positive emotions for that. And if you're doing something that your brain doesn't really like, it's going to give you a thumbs down and says, listen, this isn't really good for your survival. Your brain is programmed to help you survive, right? And so you move away from these things. And when you move away from things that are bad for you, a forest fire, a dangerous situation, we feel good when we move away from those things. And when we stay in those situations, our brain makes us feel bad, right? So is stress good or bad? Well, here's the trick, is that stress can be both good or bad. And Dr. Kelly McGonigal, who's out in California, says it's important to understand what stress is telling you. And this is really important. How you think about stress is really affects if it's good or bad for your health. We all think of stress being bad for our health, but stress is actually there to help us survive. And so it doesn't have to be bad for our health. So stay focused on the messages behind stress that your brain is giving you and take action on those. And we're going to talk about those today. So one negative side of stress is called fight or flight. So on the left-hand side of the screen here is somebody that's ready to fight, bringing it on. And when we get into this fight or flight mode, we're self-centered and focused only on survival, right? So the person on the right-hand side of the screen is saying, eek, I'm out of here. That's that version of the flight portion of fight or flight. But what happens when we get into that situation and our brain puts us in fight or flight mode, we quit thinking about other people. And the problem is other people matter. One of the most significant findings from positive psychology is that other people matter. So when you're happy, you get you, right? That's when you're understanding what makes you tick and you can get yourself and understand what really makes you happy. You can focus on others at that point once you've kind of taken care of yourself. You can focus on friends or those in need, like in these opportunities for volunteerism and philanthropy. So here's the problem, is that we have these really tiny little brains. And actually, this is not a real image. I think everybody knows my friend Homer Simpson out here, and you can throw an LOL in the chat if you want. But actually, our brains are big, but the messages can be very simplistic. And we can use that fact that our brains are rather simplistic in some ways to trigger more positive emotions. Here's how. So I asked my graphic designer to put all this information in a table format. She's very literal, so she made it look like a table. But what we're talking about is positive emotions that are triggered by neurochemicals. And positive emotions are meant to make us happy. So what really is happiness then? Because if you look on this table here, it shows us some things that maybe you would say, well, laughter certainly resonates with me as something that means happy. But what about the other things like recognition and pride and getting rewards? Is that really part of happiness? We'll talk about that. So let's look at this quote, because I really love this definition of happiness. It's not the absence of sadness, right? That's just empty. And it's not always those soaring emotional heights of ecstasy. It's like this mildly pleasant, common, but not permanent. It includes some satisfaction with most aspects of life. So think about that, that ecstasy is fleeting and being content is a state of happiness and satisfaction. Because joy, pushes us up, and then sadness brings us down. And then in between those highs and lows, just being content. It's like a wave. So if we were to do a little science experiment today, here's some stuff for you all out in San Diego, hanging out by those oceans, and that waves have different heights, right? And there's a crest and a trough. There's an amplitude of the wave, and there's a wavelength in between those. And we're not going to dive too much into the science. But our emotions are like waves. So ups and downs are natural, and they change from day to day and hour to hour and minute to minute. So the goal of my programs are to make those crests, or those tops, or those moments of elation, or those moments of happiness, higher happiness, stay up there and make them more frequent and last longer. And those troughs, or those drops down below that black dashed line on the screen there, make those smaller and less infrequent. So let's look at what it would be like to chart out maybe our happiness over the course of a day. So we've got these 3 lines here. And, at the top is that elation. It's like everything is amazing, fantastic moment. Everything is going right for you. Again, that's not always where we stay, right? It's not always our most common situation is to be in those moments of elation. Do we want more of that in life? Of course we do. Now, -10 is on the negative side of this, and that's depressive and high anxiety. And most of us are not living there as well, right? We do dip into below that gray bar, which is kind of 0. But 0 is kind of meh, like we don't want to be where there's an absence of joy, because that's really nothing. That's just absent, right? So most of us live in this range of around +6 or +7, and then it goes up and down. All right, so let's look at maybe what your typical day would look like, because it goes up and down like this green line. So your day starts where that green arrow is on the left-hand side of the screen. And you get maybe a score of 1 there because you have to get up at 7 a.m. And we know most teens don't like getting up at 7 a.m. I don't even like getting up at 7 a.m. And then your cat comes to say, hello, human. and you love cats. And then your cat pukes and your number dips back down, and then your dog eats the puke, which isn't great, but you have to clean up. You don't have to clean up the puke at least. And then your boo or your special lady friend or your romantic interest tells you how much they adore your outfit. Oh, that feels good. And then your parents tell you the exact same thing about your outfit, but you hate it when your parents do that. Right, so that's what happens in our typical days. It's up and down and up and down. And that's all driven by neurochemistry, and it's all normal, right? But look at where most of that was all on the plus side of 0 and moving up and down from, between elation and meh. And we don't want meh, right? So, oh, sorry, that was the last one there that I forgot to click. But what we have to really do is we have to focus on what really matters. And that's the name of my program. It's called Focus on the 40. And everything in my programs are all about focusing on the 40% that's important. And I'll tell you what that means. So if you look at the glasses on your screen, 50% of our happiness set point is genetic. So that number of 6 or 7 that I was telling you about, controlled primarily by genetics. So you have to thank your parents for that. If you wake up not necessarily in a bad mood, that's on you. 10% is circumstances. So 10% of your happiness is really just little things in life that don't have lasting effects on your happiness. And so it's like the new TV or the car or the new toy or the new clothes. We get habituated to those, and scientists call that hedonic adaptation, where those new things come into our lives, and then after a while, we just get used to them. So we get a little bump in happiness, but then it goes away. So 40% of it, though, is all what you can control. And what's really beautiful about what you can control is that it's all really simple, easy things. Okay, and we're going to walk through some of those today. So that 40% that you can control really comes in 5 core areas. Let's talk about those. So this is called the well-being theory. The goal is to increase human flourishing. Think about that -10. That's human flourishing is at the top, +10, and -10 is human suffering. All right, so let's walk through what those 5 core areas are in the well-being theory. Positive emotion, right? We talked about that before. Having really positive emotions in your life, you could focus on how to trigger those more using that table full of neurochemicals that I showed you before. Next part is being engaged in your life. So having a really good and engaged life, feeling fully engaged in what you're doing, being really present in those moments, and finding something called flow state. And we won't talk much about that today, but that's those moments of just being happy and focused and content, and finding ways to build more of those in your life and into the volunteerism that you do, so that you're not suffering when you're volunteering, that you're doing things that you enjoy. And those tie in really strongly with character strengths, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in October. The big part, and we're going to focus on this today, are relationships. So for people that are happiest, the relationships are everything. Relationships are considered the most important factor affecting well-being. So we'll pay attention to that today. And M stands for meaning. So that's meaning on the screen there. That's feeling connected to something bigger than oneself, whether it's family or work or spirituality or nature, believing that your lives matter, that you're driven by a sense of purpose, and the world makes sense to you, that you're doing something that's contributing to something bigger than yourself. There's your volunteerism and philanthropy again, right? So, and our last one is A, which is achievement. And so it's having goals, feeling accomplished, being inspired by your work, and being recognized by other people. So that's the well-being theory. And today we're going to focus on relationships. So one of the cool things about the science is that the strongest findings in the literature on happiness is that happy people have better relationships than less happy peers. And this comes from a really great scientist. Her name is Dr. Sonia Lubomirsky. She has a few great books out there, and her science backing is really wonderful in happiness. So it's about having these positive relationships in your life, and of course, not having those toxic relationships in your life. So when we talk about relationships and how many do happy people have, well, they have 147.8, and I don't know how you have 0.8 people, 0.8 relationships, but it's a number that comes out of this, right? So let's round that number up to 150. And this comes from evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar from the University of Liverpool. Says that 150 is the maximum really that our brains can effectively deal with in a meaningful way. So it's not really about having 150 best friends. The number that's important is 3, 1 at a minimum, and 3 is great. And for every new friend that you have that's a really tight personal friendship, you can be 10% happier. And reciprocity is really important on all of this. When we talk about relationships, it's not just about what you give to other people, because if you're giving all the time, you're not getting anything back. Those aren't really positive and strong relationships. So let's talk about what that looks like, because social support not only makes us happier in those positive relationships, but it makes us less anxious, less depressed, and even affects our bodies in positive ways. So let's talk about what social support looks like. Well, there's 3 different areas. So we call these 3 areas tangible, emotional, and informational. Here's a little information on each of those. Tangible is like doing something nice for someone, like driving someone to work, or doing chores for your parents. Parents, you can use that against your children. Emotional support is listening, reassuring, generating solutions, being supportive, and providing perspective for people. And informational is the final one. That's showing a friend how to do homework in a subject they're not good at. That's where you're sharing something that you have. And social support is a superhero power for more happiness. So why not do it like our friend Batman here, who I guess he gets it sort of, and Batman can also help Catwoman with information like how to get rid of hairballs, I guess. But let's talk about happiness and frame it around what it's like to support other people. So if you don't know this person's name, it's a really fantastic book. His name is Viktor Frankl. He's now passed on, but he was an Auschwitz survivor that was he was in Germany and he was held in a concentration camp. And he survived under awful situations. So social support was a big thing that kept people alive, being in service to other people while they were all in this containment where they couldn't do anything and they were living in miserable conditions. And one thing that really kept them alive was hope, and the other thing was being of service to other people. So it's the unintended consequence of doing something, a surrender to a person other than oneself. We're going to keep coming back to that because it's not all about you. And this is us going from, again, self-focused to other-focused. All right, so that was a quick insight into happiness with a focus on relationships. And don't get me wrong, relationships are hard and sometimes a source of stress. And we all do this. Those brains, even though Homer's brain looked like it was really small, are actually always working through scenarios. And about 500,000 years ago, our brains doubled in size. And our brains use all of these billions of neural connections to simulate social possibilities so that you can choose the best course of action. So we're constantly sort of simulating things in our head, and that is generally a very good thing, unless it goes a little too far. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Because we've all probably been social simulating before in our minds. And this is one of my favorite little jokes about this is, hypothetical arguments I've won in the shower. How many people out there give me an LOL if that's you, because I've done it to myself, or I've been kind of working through scenarios in my brain. And it was maybe overthinking those situations. We're going to talk about how to use those. Thanks for those LOLs out there. All right, so let's talk about the big 3. And I made the 3 really big because I'm very literal as well. So what are the big 3? Well, here they come. Rumination, catastrophizing, and comparison. And specifically social comparison is what we're talking about. So let's start with rumination. And we're going to move through these really quickly, but don't worry, there's an opportunity for you to grab a free ebook on this that you can walk through any one of these scenarios that we're going to talk about and any one of the big 3 and put these tools in place in your own life. Okay, here we go. So what is rumination? Well, rumination is overthinking, right? It's needlessly, endlessly, and excessively, right? Think about those words. Needlessly, endlessly, and excessively pondering your character, your feelings, or your problems, right? And of course, you run into this sometimes at 4 a.m. when you wake up and your brain is still processing through something. We also call this overthinking, and this comes from Dr. Sonia Lubomirski's work as well. Now, the problem with rumination is that it sustains or worsens sadness, it negatively biases our thinking, and it saps our motivation, interferes with concentration or our initiative. So you can see that this is sort of debilitating when you get stuck in these cycles and you're just ruminating. All right, so let's talk about how to stop that. So when you see this little tool thing on your screen, that's our tool, and you can write that down. And again, there's a recording that you'll be able to get from today's session as well. So what you can do in those situations that will really help with rumination is to say, stop. So what would work on this situation? So catch yourself ruminating or overthinking and just literally to yourself say, stop. Like, what am I doing? I'm thinking about this too much. I need to break this thought pattern. And then the second part of this is to try to distract yourself and get out of those patterns. So find something immersive. I talked about flow state before, right? Things that really make you happy and focused and you get fully immersed in. So for me, it's like playing my guitar or making really terrible art or playing sports. I like playing a lot of sports. I ride my mountain bike a lot. Or it could be for a short period of time, a video game or a TV show. I'm not encouraging those as ways to escape reality, right? All right, so that's our first thing there. I'm gonna check the chat just to make sure I didn't miss anything from anybody. I want to see that there's a lot of L's in there. Yep. Oh yeah, rumination expert, good. Many shower insights, thank you. Good, I'm glad you guys are enjoying that. Okay, so let's move on to item number 2 in the big 3, and that is called catastrophizing. So catastrophizing is making the worst of a bad situation. And we're going to come back to our friend, super anxious girl, right? She's able to leap to the worst possible conclusion in a single bound. So when we think about catastrophizing, what we're really doing is we're looking at 3 different options when we try to use this tool to help get rid of these catastrophic thoughts. So there's the worst possible scenario, right? And we think about that, and that's the catastrophe that we're worried about. But what we don't always think about is, well, what's the best possible scenario that could come out of this? And let's give that the same amount of space that we would the worst. And then maybe most importantly here, and this is what the tool will focus on, is the most likely scenario. So we can look at those 3 outcomes, and when we look at the most likely outcome, we're going to make a plan. Now, don't get me wrong, like we all have the worst case scenarios, right? Poor Cookie Monster doesn't want to delete cookies. He doesn't know, right? But what we want to do is we want to take action. And remember what we talked about before, is that our brain loves it when we take action. It reduces anxiety, and our brain likes to see us making strides towards solving issues. So make a plan for the most likely scenario, and don't spend as much time thinking about the best or worst. Now, don't focus entirely on the problem either, right? Focus on realistically what's in your control, and that's what we want to spend some time on. All right, I'm going to check on the chat real quick. Hope you guys are having fun out there. Good. Good, I'm glad there's some laughs out there. So this poor cat, if he were to just look up, realizing he could probably get out of that cage pretty easily. All right, let's talk about number 3 in our big, in the big 3. And that's called social comparison. So social comparison is evaluating your success compared to those around you. So is social comparison bad or good? Well, it's the same sort of thing as stress, is that it's kind of both, right? Now, in the good, if you're comparing yourself to others, is that the happiest people want success for other people, not failure. So if you can see other people's success and you can use that to inspire and motivate you, seeing that other people are like, well, if they can do it, well, then so can I. That's a positive part of social comparison. But here's the bad part, is remember, our brains want us to go after resources, right? And our brains want us to chase things, and that's part of what makes us happy. And we're always constantly trying to find resources in society. And that makes us sort of competitive with other people. But you don't want to be so focused on those 10% of things out there that are the social comparisons, right? So here's an example, is, I have a fairly nice TV in my condo, but it's not a 16-foot TV. Like, I don't even think I could fit that in my house. So someone is always going to have the bigger TV, the bigger house, the nicer car, or they're going to make more money, or they're going to have the nicer clothes or things. Remember that in our focus on the 40 stuff, that's only 10%, and that's the life circumstances and things that give us some fleeting happiness, but don't really necessarily provide us with lasting happiness. All right, so how do we turn off these social comparisons? Well, there's several tools, and I love this one. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat over here. Ooh, comparison can be the thief of joy when it's used in a negative way. Very good one. All right, so there's several tools when we talk about social comparison, and this is my favorite one. So it's called Hunt for the Good Stuff, and you can see this guy here on the screen. That's Mr. Bill Murray from my favorite documentary, Caddyshack, and his words of advice are Gunga Lagunga. I think that's how you say it. And what Gunga Lagunga means, I think, is hunt for the good stuff and find 3 good things. Now, Bill Murray's character in Caddyshack was actually hunting gophers, and I want you to hunt for the good stuff in your life. And it's really simple to do. You can do it as a journaling activity. Towards the end of your day, put it right next to your nightstand. So it's something that you can reflect on your day as you're going off to sleep. So hunt for the good stuff, 3 good things, same sort of name for this effort. So what good things happened today, right? Write down 3 good things that happened each day or that day. And this is what's really important, how did you make them happen, right? So think about the things in your life that you have control over and the positive things that you're making happen in your life. Now, ideally, you're using your character strengths in your day, and we're not going to talk about character strengths today, but we'll look at that. But character strengths are powerful. Once you understand your mix of character strengths, you'll really understand how to use those more in your daily life to make more good things happen. Okay, so now we talked about dealing with stress, right? So now we have some tools, and there's some really good news about stress and trauma. Most of us know about this term called PTSD, and that's post-traumatic stress disorder. And we think about that a lot when we think about the military. The people that come back from the military have experienced really traumatic things, and they have really bad reactions to that, right? It's a disorder. Now, the interesting thing is that post-traumatic stress disorder causes growth. And you're thinking to yourself, did he just say growth? And I'm saying, yes, it does. Post-traumatic growth is an actual technical term, and it's been measured by positive psychologists. That happens after trauma, and it's been measured in military clients and also in civilians after these civilians and traumatic events. So we can and we generally do recover from traumatic events with post-traumatic growth. So let's talk about post-traumatic growth for just a second, right? It causes growth. And so what happens? I mean, you can think about this in your own life, is that we get used to these things that have happened to us and we move on from them. And you've experienced trauma in your life, in your past, and some of it can be debilitating. So if you're having those sort of issues that you can't work through on your own, seek the help of a therapist. There's absolutely nothing wrong with those things if you can't find a way to alleviate those on your own. A lot of us out there have experienced either death in our families or divorce or COVID. We've experienced financial struggles, or we've been separated from all of our friends, and we have all these traumas that we really don't want in our life. So you can see that you made it through those things in the past and you've grown from those things, and that actually makes us more resilient. And of course, this is a funny little meme here, but they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And if that's the case, I'm expecting my superpowers and a new cape any day now. Anybody out there with me on that one? I should be wearing a cape probably right now. Because COVID-19 has been really hard for professional speakers like myself, because people haven't been getting together. Get some LOLs out there. And you can order a cape online at Amazon.com. All right, good. Let's move into, we've addressed dealing with stress, and let's talk about building some resilience. Now, you're going to build resilience by moving through those catastrophic thinking and those social comparisons and any of those ruminations. And when you kind of get better at these things, dealing with stressors in your life, you start dealing with the little things like they're nothing, right? So let's talk about focusing heavily on building resilience now. And resilience is the mental process and behaviors that people use to protect themselves from the harmful effect of stressors, right? And everyone does this, and we do this in our own way. Some of us do it in a really healthy way. Some of us do it in a not so healthy way. All right, so a great tool for building resilience is optimism. So let's talk about optimism. I love this little image. See how well this monkey might do with that elephant coming across there. But what is optimism first? Let's talk about that. So it's the expectation of positive outcomes, right? So you're expecting good things to happen to you. And this part's really important. It's expecting good outcomes coupled with the self-confidence that you will help get those things accomplished, right? So that's putting you in charge of having outcomes that are positive caused by you, right? So you want to be in control of your situation. So why do we want to bother with optimism? Well, there's a higher quality of life, and for people of any age and any gender. And if you have a pessimistic style of life or viewpoint, found to be significantly associated with depressive symptoms. So you don't want to be in that mindset of expecting bad things to happen and expecting that they've happened to you. We're going to flip the script on that for you today. Here's how it works. So, at first I thought this was really good, because I say that the slogan for my Focus on the 40 program is that glass that you've seen before on the left. And I say, don't live life half glassed, right? Because that 10% of those circumstances and 40% is the other part of the glass that you can fill up. And remember, the 10% is like, those fleeting things, but they're still good things. So it's okay to chase those things. I'll give you an example. For me, I just bought a raft. I live in Colorado, and I love being on the river, and I love being around other people. I'm a very social person. So I bought a raft. That is a thing. It's a materialistic thing, but I really know that it was going to enhance my life by allowing me to be out in nature more and with other people. So hopefully that makes sense for you when you evaluate your own purchases in your life and what the importance of money is in your own life. So I love this image on the left, though, on the right, because this person was obviously an optimist, or maybe just pragmatic, because if you're a scientist, you know that just because the glass doesn't have water in it doesn't mean it's empty, because air is matter. Okay, that's the old science teacher coming out of me. I'll stop. All right, so let's talk about how to keep that glass full, and we're going to talk on 3 parts of combating the 3 P's of pessimism. They're permanent, personal, and pervasive, and we're going to walk through each of these in some scenarios with some superhero friends that you might know in real life. All right, so we've got our two folks out there, and one is called Optimism Man, and he's on the left right there, and he's very, very confident that he will defeat you, right? And of course, that I will defeat you. And then Pessimism Guy is on the right-hand side, and Pessimism Guy says, yeah, you probably will defeat me, because that's just kind of how Pessimism Guy works, right? So Optimism Man is solution-oriented, a lot of self-belief, self-esteem, action-oriented, focused on being part of the solutions for positive outcomes in their lives. Or Pessimism Man, when you couple with Anxiety Girl, form the definitely defeatable duo, because, you know, when you're pessimistic, the outcomes typically happen in a way that you don't want them to. I got some stuff to click through here on that one. Okay, so let's look at how Optimism Man and Pessimism Guy treat individuals' situations around pessimism, okay? So when we come over, there's Optimism Man, and there's Pessimism Man, right? So optimists don't think that negative situations are permanent, that they're going to last forever, or that they just happen all the time. So Optimism Man looks at something bad that happens in their life and says, hey, like, this rarely happens. Like, bad things happen sometimes in life, but I don't expect them to happen all the time, and I'm actively in control of making sure that good things happen in my life. For example, last year in July, my truck got stolen, and I watched my truck driving away from me. And I knew that that was a rare occurrence in my life, and actually turned out to be one of the funniest days of my life. I had a really fun ride with the police officer that day. But the Pessimism Man says that, you know what, this always happens to me. And that's part of that mindset of expecting bad things to come and viewing life through that lens. And I can tell you that if you want to look at life through the lens of the gray cloud of Mr. Pessimism Man here, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to see that, because there's plenty of negative things that happen in the world every single day. We're experiencing that now with COVID and all the things happening with Black Lives Matter, right? And hopefully we're working towards positive solutions with those things. Okay, but difference between them being permanent and not being permanent, recognizing that things don't last forever. All right, let's move on. So Optimism Man fails a test and says, you know what? I didn't study well for the test. And, you know, it happens sometimes, right? You get busy with other stuff. You don't put in the amount of time that you need to. And here comes Mr. Pessimism Man just saying, you know what? I'm just stupid, and I always fail at these things. Or it's personal. It's me. I just don't have any ability to do these things. So optimists don't blame themselves for every negative situation, and they see a path forward towards success, right? Optimism Man on the left says, I didn't study well for the test. I know what I can change next time. All right, good. Now we're moving on to the final P, this is pervasive. So Optimism Man says, you know what? I just got one bad test. This isn't how my life works. There's plenty of other positive in my life, and I don't see myself as a failure because of one poor outcome. Versus Pessimism Man that says, I failed at everything, right? So we can see that these patterns sort of can be self-fulfilling in a lot of ways too, if you believe that bad things are going to happen for you. All right, so really what you need to do in this situation here is just look at those situations as true or false, you know, and you can challenge these, and don't worry, you're gonna have access to the ebook. And the ebook's gonna give you the opportunity to really play with these in real life scenarios. And in the ebook, I actually use the story of my truck being stolen to kind of challenge my optimistic thinking or my pessimistic thinking about it. It's actually a pretty funny blog post, so make sure you grab the ebook, and it'll give you a good laugh if nothing else. So you can challenge these things, and you can say true or false on this. Is this temporary or is it forever? Well, in most situations, everything is temporary, right? Or is it that I'm not entirely to blame, right? So there's other extenuating circumstances that could be affecting me. Now, I'm not giving you the chance to say that I'm going to blame everyone else for all the problems all the time. We have to take responsibility for our own actions. But there's times when you can recognize that other mitigating circumstances really affected what was going on. And then the third part would be, again, challenge it, true or false. This isn't a regular occurrence. Like, one bad thing happened to me. My truck got stolen. It's the only time it's ever happened in my life. I don't expect it to happen again. And if it does happen again, it's fine. I have insurance, right? That's why we have these things. I'll get another truck. I can get a rental car. I'm not going to let this be something that turns into an entirely negative situation in my life. All right, so you'll have a chance to explore all this further after today's workshop with the free ebook that you can get. It's called Get Happy Now. And you'll get that, and you can use it for homework. Oh, sorry, did they not tell you you're going to have homework? Yes, you're going to have homework, and this is my favorite cat. His name is Lucky, even though he's missing one ear. And yes, you're going to have homework, and don't make that face, okay? It's fun homework, but you have to do the homework yourself, okay? And magic won't do the homework for you, and neither will a spell. You know, you really got to take this on and do it yourself. Okay. And there's my buddy Calvin again. And I hope there's some Calvin and Hobbes fans out there. He's my favorite. Bill Watterson's a personal hero of mine. And I love Calvin and Hobbes. I've said it multiple times. I have all the books. I give them away sometimes to people that need them. And my stepmother told me at one point in my life, she said, you know, you can't go living your whole life, Anthony, like you're Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. And I said, oh yeah, well, look at me now, because I tried. Okay, so I wanted to share with you the opportunity to grab that homework. So I'll leave this on the screen for a second. You can open your phone up, pop open the camera, and you can scan that QR code, and it'll send you over to a website where you can grab that Get Happy Now guide that's shown on the left. The homework is free, it's funny. And today, for you, especially for TVIA, I'm offering 100% money back guarantee on this free ebook. And people say you can't offer a money back guarantee on a free ebook. And I said, well, we did it anyway, because that's how committed I am to your success. So the link for the homework is also going to be on the chat. We'll throw that in there right now. In fact, I'll do that for you. Let's see if I can do that. Or Diana, I think you have access to that. And if we can't do it right now, we'll throw it in there at the end of today's presentation, which is coming up shortly here. And that's a wrap for today's session on stress and resilience. I hope you've been laughing along the way with me and having a good time for this. And don't forget that we do have coming up in October 13th, we'll be talking more about happiness. And you know, this little pie chart on the left is pretty funny, right? So the big part of the pie chart there is that we do things because it looks good on our resume, right? And I think you need to understand that volunteerism is way, way more important than that. Yes, the yellow, there's important causes. Yes, in red, it makes a difference. And that blue part right there of it feeling fulfilling is really important. So what I want you to pay attention to is that, you know, we can bring a lot more happiness into our lives by using our strengths, and that's the S on the bottom there, and our virtues, and they're associated with our strengths, and use those in service to others, and that's meaning. And that's what we're going to talk about on October 13th when we get back together. So I'm going to turn it back over to the TVIA team. They're just going to share a couple quick closing comments. We'll make sure that you have access to the link in the chat bar. And thank you for your attention and for your laughs. I really appreciated getting to talk with you today. And I'm looking forward to getting back with everyone in October again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anthony. That was a really great presentation. And I know a few people had a little trouble accessing that QR code. So we will have that ready for all of the GLAs to get it out to everybody if you're interested. You may just have been overwhelmed at the moment. This concludes our 2020-2021 kickoff meeting. We appreciate all of your time with this new format, and we really hope that you enjoyed it. Tracy, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we conclude the meeting?
No, we did end a little bit early. So all of your class meetings are scheduled to start at 2 o'clock. So you have a little bit of a break. You can go ahead and grab a glass of water, take a bio break, and we'll meet back in our class meetings at 2 o'clock. But thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
And I'm going to drop that link in the chat right now. So give me just 1 second.
Thank you.
Anthony, is it okay if I stop the recording as well?
Absolutely.